Hello my beautiful ballet nerds. It is the holiday season and boy is there a lot to unpack. I've been editing this video as I follow by a dare and I'm very happy with where it's going, but it's been very labor intensive and it's been exhausting and I've run into some technical problems with it, and I realized, you know what I need something fun. And doesn't everybody actually? If you're anything like me, you need a Nutcracker fix. Whether or not you're in it, but mostly if you're not. And I spent a few years out of ballet, so I went through a lot of them. Let me tell you how we're gonna do this. If you've never watched a ranking video, and I suppose we don't really have them in ballet for whatever reason, because people do sure love listing out their faves. A lot of YouTubers who do really good jobs. I personally really like Mike's Mike. He's honestly really funny, and using his his ranking inspiration, his categories are always hilarious. So that's where we're gonna start here today with our categories. The very bottom of the categories is that one bobby pin. You know, the one, your hair all done up, you've sprayed it to death, nothing in it's moving, you have like a really big complex hairpiece, and there's that one bobby pin, and you feel like it's going into your brain cortex, and it's like literally about to poke a hole. I hate that bobby pin. Next up, we have minor wardrobe malfunction, and this is, you also know the one. You know, it's where like something is loose, or like somebody forgot to take their leg warmers. I'm not saying it was me, but that could have happened in the past. It's annoying, it's not very nice, it definitely didn't look great, but you know what? The show went on. Up next we have 90-degree turnout, and this is a category that I like to call just okay. You know, it's not gonna make anything any better, it's not gonna make anything any worse. For sure, it's still going to require a lot of work, but it's there. You know, is it good? Is it great to have? Okay, yeah, sure. Doesn't matter if you don't, kind of know. Higher up we have center stage. Hear me out. It's very enjoyable, it's delightful, it's fun. A good time was had by all. Is it revolutionary? No. Is it avant-garde? Not really, but it's there. And it served a great purpose, it's fun, it's a good time, but that's it. It's not going to change the world, it's not revolutionary, it's not extraordinary. It's great. It's fun. It's great. I love center stage, by the way. But at the very top of the list, what we have is Marianela Nunez turning. Why do we have this? Because it's something so extraordinary, so ethereal, and so precise and so joyful that most humans, we can never even imagine achieving such perfection. So you know what's the next best thing? Is to enjoy it and to love it and to praise it, because it is genius. First up we have Nutcracker in the Four Realms, and boy is that a mess. The design is kind of pretty, like it does look very pretty, although I do get the feeling that whoever designed the wardrobe kind of lifted it a little bit from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but I digress. They really tried to do something different with the plot, but it does not land. And to me, Nutcracker in the Four Realms is that one bobby pin. It really is that. It's not good. Up next we have the Gray Murphy Nutcracker, and I saw this live with the Australia Ballet Company. This is honestly really interesting. It's an entirely different story. The music is used very much out of order. I think it's really creative. I generally kind of like Gray Murphy, but it's just really interesting. The plot basically is about a ballerina who has gotten older, and during the holiday season she meets with her family, wait, with her friends, because ballet is all consuming and you can't have and then she recalls her life as a younger Daisy who came to Australia. And it's honestly very charming. And the reason why to me it's not top tier, and I'm going to put it on the center stage, is because although it's really creative and it does do very interesting things, and I found it very, very moving, the second act, it's not that great. The first act is so much better, and that's just the only reason why to me it's not top tier. I find that overall as a story, it's perhaps more solid than the actual Nutcracker, because that's just the thing about the Nutcracker, there's not a lot of story. Up next, we have Barbie and the Nutcracker. I would call Barbie and the Nutcracker as much better than what it actually is. It's really bad. In the story, like, again, we run into a problem with a lot of Nutcracker media because there's not a lot of story to the Nutcracker. And that's usually okay on stage because, you know, what takes an act to develop on stage can take 10 minutes on film. And that's why people run into these issues over, like, they try to pad the story. Realize that, you know, people might think like, oh, you know, motion capture was not that great at the time, or computer animation was not that great, but like Fantasia 2000 came the year before this, and that's extraordinary. I just find that the level of animation is just destructive. And there's like, I get this impression that like for some reason they had like different teams do the motion capture scenes, because those seem to have a lot more detail and do look a lot better, and then you have scenes that are close-ups of the characters and they look literally plastic. But I do give it a few points because it's the first of the Barbie movies and I appreciate that. I know they got a little bit better. I also like that they really put in a lot of work towards motion capture, that they actually hired actual dancers to do it. So I do like these things about it, and I did have a little bit of nostalgia for it. So these are the reasons why to me it's not that horrible. I will call it a minor wardrobe malfunction. So thanks, Barbie. Up next we have The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, and this is the first traditional Nutcracker ballet on this list. This is by the Dutch National Ballet. I don't know what to say about this, honestly. The production is okay. There's something a little weird about, like, it stars Matthew Golding, and he, during the party scenes, he dances with Clara, like little Clara. But I just find the whole thing really weird. Like, that to me, why is a grown man dancing with Clara, and then Clara's having dreams about him? It's like, I don't like that. But even if I could get past that and like say that that was just like whatever, creative decision, moving on, I cannot move on because it has blackface. And so like that to me is already, that alone takes it to that one bobby pin. I'm sorry, Dutch National Ballet. I know they changed it since, but like what do I care if they've changed it since, because since this is the one that's available. So like, none of my business. What's the point? The Nutcracker Suite in Fantasia is honestly what I feel most choreographers aspire their Nutcracker to feel like. It's kind of abstract, it's kind of not abstract, it's got this beautiful softness to it. The animation is delightful, and I think, you know, when you watch that, part of you can't believe that they did that almost 100 years ago, because it's so good. It really is fantastic. And I think that's ultimately what makes it so beautiful, that it does reflect how movement feels. That sounds very weird, but that's really how I would describe it. Don't know, is this center stage, or I think I'm going to call this Marinella Nunez turning. Just as I said, because it looks like what movement feels like, and I think that's just very special. Here's a funny one. This is Lifetime or Hallmark. I honestly, at this point, I don't know who aired it first. We have a Nutcracker Christmas. This is a movie that, like, before I sat down to do this ranking, I would have said it was terrible. Because it kind of is. But, you know, upon closer inspection and having seen a lot of them that are actually really bad, I'm gonna go with this is 90-degree turnout. This is just okay. Because is it unrealistic? Yes. Is it kind of silly? Yes. Is it very cliche? Of course it is. It's a TV Christmas movie. There is a good amount of dancing, I would call it. Is it great dancing? Kind of not, but it's there. It does, again, it's just really cliche. A lot of it is really cheesy. But that's a Christmas movie for TV. Am I expecting greatness from that? Really not. So, all of these things considered, it's not bad. It's okay. Up next we have The Heart Knot. And this is very interesting. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland meets Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's just something so different, and I think because it's so different, it's really fun. I also think that one of the things that I like best about The Heart Knot is that it doesn't really take itself very seriously. It's just there, like literally it just feels like people are having fun. But then the other thing about it is that it has such a complexity around a lot of the choreographic movements, like what a lot of the patterns that you see in the group numbers are beautiful. Like they're honestly stunning. A few other things are a little bit too much for me, but I think overall it really does work. Trying to tell a different story, but it's a story that feels very familiar because we do know references, we do understand the kind of visual language that is being used. So I think overall that is part of what really makes it work. And it's probably not for bunheads because if you are very into ballet, like if you're very strictly ballet, you may not like it. But I think the combination is very effective and I think it is very charming. And to me, The Heart Knot is strictly center stage. Up next we have Dance Dreams, Hot Chocolate Nutcracker. This is a documentary and it is on Netflix, and it follows the Nutcracker season for the Debbie Allen Dance Academy. If you don't know Debbie Allen, I'm not sure that I can help you, but Debbie Allen is an institution of a woman in both dance, on stage, and on TV and film. She is fantastic. And something that Miss Debbie Allen saw was that not only is there a tremendous lack of diversity in ballet in general, which we've talked about and will talk about here for as long as that is the case. Most importantly, perhaps, is that a lot of the material in this Nutcracker, in the Hot Chocolate Nutcracker, is a variety of different dance languages. And that, I think that works again really well. Because it's just not trying to disrupt the Nutcracker for the purpose of disrupting. It's disrupting the narrative and the dance language of the Nutcracker because there is a realization that it's not inclusive and that people can relate to a lot of other dance languages. And I think that overall works very well. And there is the added value of understanding what a lot of these dancers, black dancers for the most part, go through while trying to achieve a professional career. You know, the combination of the Nutcracker production being very solid and the added background of all the other dancers and all the other things we see, I think overall those things together just make for a fantastic watch, and I cannot recommend it enough. This to me is Marinelli's turning. Just chef's kiss. Up next we have the Mariinsky production of the Nutcracker. It's perfectly delightful. You know, if you are looking for a Nutcracker, like classic, straight classic Nutcracker, this is it. There are not offensive things in it. Maybe it's not extraordinary, but it's a perfectly fine classical production of the Nutcracker. And if you like the Russian style, which a lot of people seem to do, to me, this is perfect center stage. Delightful. Up next we have the Matthew Bourne Nutcracker. I don't like this as much as his One Leg. I don't find it quite as enjoyable. It's also not as funny as the Hard Knot. I just kind of don't like it. But I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. It's just definitely not my style. I'm gonna say this minor wardrobe malfunction, but that's just me because it's really not my style. It might be very different for you. Up next we have Making a New American Nutcracker. This is a PBS documentary. This is fantastic. And honestly, to me, this really opened up my eyes to a lot of the things that the Nutcracker can do. It follows the Joffrey Ballet and Christopher Wheeldon as they embark on creating an all-new production of the Nutcracker. Now, Christopher Wheeldon has ballets of very different varieties. You know, some of them I adore, some of them I don't really like. Alright, so my battery died, which is fun. But it cannot be denied that he is a genius for putting things on stage. So when he comes to the Joffrey Ballet and he says the things that he says about the Nutcracker.
Yes, that's like Ratatouille food critic, 5 stars.
Privileged child who has everything in life. She has a loving family, she has a beautiful Victorian home.
A kid that has more than she could ever dream of.
And then she falls asleep and dreams of more candy and more entertainment.
There's not a lot that's enjoyable about the story of a rich girl who just dreams about having more. I mean, in this economy. So his production does have a lot of resonance because he tried to make it different. He understands how it's difficult to find value in a story like that, and he brings it to Chicago and he makes it relevant to people there. He makes it a story about immigrants, and he adds a lot of value to it. I found it to be very moving. I think it's very creative, and to me, 10 out of 10, this is Marianne News turning. Next we have The Naughtiest Nutcracker. I don't know how this aired originally. I don't know if it was made for TV. I don't know if it went in cinemas, which would be terrible. But it's not good. As I was saying before, like once you start to pat the story, it becomes really convoluted most of the time. And I understand that that's a flaw of the original story, but there's not much to do about it if you don't do it very smartly. Like, again, kind of like how Wheeldon is proposing to do it. This is just padded in a lot of senseless ways. It's not funny. It is a little bit careless, you know, like it doesn't take itself very seriously, but how could it? I mean, this is Barbie meets Veggie Tales, so there's not a lot of places to go with it. To me, this is straight, that one bobby pin. There's also no dancing, which is annoying to say the least, but it's not as bad as what's coming up. Let me take a sip before we get into that. Nutcracker 3D is an abomination on this earth. It should be a war crime, and I do not say that lightly. If you've never heard about this, it's a 2009-2010 movie that has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, with very good reason. As I was just saying, when you start to pat the story of the Nutcracker, it gets really messy, and it gets really messy very fast. When you're talking about a battle between the Mouse King and the Nutcracker, and that's a battle that's happening, like, you know, in Clara's living room, then is that military propaganda? Probably. I mean, you can go through the length of imagining that this girl is falling asleep, having a dream about a play that she just saw, and so it sort of stands to reason. But when you try to make it real and try to make it gritty, and then you go and make the Mouse King an allegory for Nazis, really? Why?
But you did this for what? Why not? Why?
I don't understand. They have Nazi-like costumes, they have Nazi-like symbols, they enslave the people, who, by the way, are waiting and telling the Mouse King that our prince and our actual king he will come to rescue us. I mean, it's disgusting, honestly. It's awful. It just packs the story in all of these terrible ways, and it does not dwell on the nuance of it. I can't believe I watched this. I watched this for you, just so you know. Comment, like, subscribe, because I did this for you. On top of all of this, Tim Rice, who is a great lyricist and has written for musicals that I personally really love, had the audacity to put lyrics to Tchaikovsky's score. I mean, this movie is evil. This movie is so evil that it cannot even be that one Bobby pin. This movie is now a permanent grudge for me, and it gets its own special category. It is Sergei Polunin's Instagram feed. And I do not mean his current Instagram feed. The old one that he deleted and he thinks we forgot about, where he would say homophobic things and fatphobic things. That's the kind of grudge I have. I will not forget this movie. Just like I will not forget Sergei Polunin's Instagram feed. Up next we have 1993, New York City Ballet, The Nutcracker, with Macaulay Culkin. If you're not a millennial, you may not understand the impact that Macaulay Culkin had in the 90s. But Macaulay Culkin was everywhere. He was the most famous child star of the 90s. Is it a good production? That is debatable. But I do think it has a lot of historical value. I'm glad that it exists, and I understand why people are very attached to this production, and this video in particular is that reason for me. You know, like, it came out during a time when I was, you know, a child, and it was a good exposure at a young age to the Nutcracker, and I appreciate it for that. So for that reason, to me, it's center stage. Also, Wendy Whalen dances the Arabian dance, which is chef's kiss. Up next we have New York City Ballet, The Nutcracker. It's very popular across America because George Balanchine worked really hard to make this popular, and I recognize that, value that very much, but I will also say I don't really like this production. I don't like that, you know, the kids just sit around in Act 2. Like, I don't think that's what kids do, but I don't like the regional dances, I don't like the Chinese dance, I don't like the Arabian dance. I do think they are stereotypes. But to me especially, what's really annoying about it is switching up the order of the pas de deux. Why would you do that? I don't understand why, but to me it just feels like it wants to be different. Like, oh, the Balanchine production is different, which is like, okay, but why? When you're watching it as a progressively more complex thing of the dances getting more difficult and longer and more elaborate, then there really is a climax around the pas de deux. But when you break it up, you miss out on that climax. I just don't like it. I feel like people will buy it, but to me, this is straight up not a great turnout. I understand the value of it. I understand why a lot of people are attached to it. It's not for me though. I will say, however, that the group numbers are fantastic. The choreography is beautiful for the flowers, for the snowflakes, those big numbers and the big Balanchine patterns. Those are very beautiful. The last of my Balanchine options is Pacific Northwest Ballet's George Balanchine's Nutcracker. Boy, do I have a lot to say about this. Again, I understand why people are attached to the Balanchine version. But why would you spend a lot of money towards creating a whole different looking production, a completely different set of costumes, which are beautiful because these costumes are, my God, they're breathtaking. The way the flowers move and the dewdrop in the different colors, my God, those are fantastic. But you did all of that for a production that already existed everywhere else. With the wealth of creative talent that we have across ballet, that's what you spend your money on. I understand very well that there's a proliferation of Balanchine Nutcrackers because a lot of Balanchine dancers are now directing multiple companies across the United States. But does that mean that they have to bring the Nutcracker to all of these companies? I don't think so. So to me, this is straight up minor wardrobe malfunction, which again, it pains me to say. These costumes are beautiful and I know these dancers work really hard, but I just can't see why that's the decision that they made. Another thing I didn't do on purpose was leave the Royal Opera House for last, but here it is for last. The Royal Opera House production of The Nutcracker is by Sir Peter Wright, and it is my personal favorite. The Clara is performed by a dancer of the company and therefore has a lot of agents. Makes a lot more sense when you go into Act 2 and these dancers who perform Clara in The Nutcracker get to dance with everybody else. Because again, that's what you would imagine a kid dreams about. Like, kids don't dream about sitting down. There's a lot of beauty in the group numbers, and because this production has been so widely available for so many years, comparing the 2006 version, which is perfectly fine, to the 2018 version, the Court of Ballet is just exquisite. It's breathtaking. If you can get your hands on any of the productions, the 2018 one is available on Marquee TV, and it has Marinella Nunez as the Sugar Plum Fairy, and Vadim Tagorov as the Prince. Anna Rose O'Sullivan plays Clara, and Marcelino Sambe plays the Prince, the Nutcracker, sorry, the nephew. In a conversation at the Royal Ballet for Black History Month, Marty tells the story of how he used to wonder, you know, would I ever be able to play that role?
I was so fortunate from the beginning that the director, Kevin O'Hare, even when I was stepping into roles, for example, Nephew, and Nephew was known to have this golden hair, and that design was scrapped. So like when I was doing it, and that for me was such a moment of like, I thought like, wow, I'm creating my own space in this building.
The actual talent that Marcy has on the Nutcracker, he is so good. He is so good. Especially his Act 2 mime. My God, that looks like such difficult choreography. He does it so beautifully. Honestly remarkable. Definitely recommended to me. Absolutely, Marinella Nunez turning. This is delightful. Hello again, it's me from the future. Because I've edited this and then I realized that I lost my footage for the outro. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I also want to say thank you to my friend Kayla for encouraging me to do this because it was indeed a lot of fun. And to my friend Minnie for helping me come up with some of these category names. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a comment and tell me what you liked. And if you hated it and you think I'm really wrong, also please by all means tell me about it. Me and Daisy wish you the happiest of holiday seasons, and I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, wear your masks, and hopefully that way next year we can have a normal Nutcracker season. But in the meantime, I hope this helped you get your Nutcracker fix, and see you guys soon. Bye!